Take a look at these clips. A man literally pulled a racer out of a flaming car. And in this video, a random passerby saved a boy from the railroad tracks, just seconds before the train arrived. In this video, I will show and tell you about the most shocking videos of people being rescued, all caught on camera. And at the end of the video, you'll see shocking footage of the racer literally jumping out of the burning car half a minute later. Enjoy watching. Distracted by phone. This video is a vivid example of what can happen if you're too distracted by your phone. A girl with headphones decided not to look around before crossing the road. Fortunately, there was a man nearby who miraculously saved her by pulling her out from under the wheels of an approaching car. Storm and swimmers. And in this footage, it's clear what happens when you ignore lifeguards' warnings about a storm at sea or in the ocean. A girl decided to swim at a rather inappropriate moment when the waves reached several meters in height. Naturally, a delicate beauty like her couldn't handle them. Fortunately, there was a group of surfers nearby who managed to come to her rescue in time. I shudder to think what would have happened if nobody had been around. Child overboard. Have you ever been amazed at how quickly parents react sometimes? I completely understand all these people, because their little ones are above all. A young dad displayed lightning-fast reflexes when he was paddling with his baby on a kayak. Something caught the child's interest in the water, and he accidentally fell in. Luckily, his father was on point. He immediately pulled his child out of the water. Cyclists accident. But what amazes me the most is the following video. Here you can see how a young man saves a huge number of professional cyclists from inevitable injuries. A couple of athletes collided on a turn and fell, and their bikes remained lying on the track. And then the man saw the main group of riders approaching at high speed. He swiftly removed the bike lying under their wheels. Personally, I consider this video a real miracle. If he hadn't managed to remove that bike, a huge number of people would have been harmed. Burning bus. And this video is the best coincidence that could have happened. Look, a small traffic jam formed at the traffic lights, with a fire engine at the forefront. Somewhere in the middle, a bus approaches, smoke billowing from it. Everyone immediately understood that there was a fire. The bus driver evacuated the passengers and then left the vehicle himself. Fortunately, the firefighters noticed the trouble and immediately started to extinguish the fire. I'm still amazed by how other drivers behaved. Those who were blocking the firefighters immediately moved their cars, and other vehicles remained motionless in place. Daylight robbery. The worst thing that can happen near your private house is a robbery, and in this security camera footage, it's clear how a pair of robbers attacks a woman. They snatch her car keys, and one of them rudely takes off her sunglasses. The thieves get into the car and are about to leave, but then armed police officers appear from around the corner. Resisting them is pointless, as is trying to run away. The robbers exit the car in fear and lie down on the ground. The woman was extremely lucky that law enforcement officers happened to pass by at that moment. Burning Nascar car. Do you know how complex and dangerous famous Nascar races are? It's not just a popular spectacle for no reason. Heartbreaking accidents regularly happen there, and professional drivers often die despite the most advanced safety systems in their cars. In this video, another accident occurred, which almost ended tragically. Two cars collided, and one of them was heavily spun around. The impact damaged the fuel tank. Gasoline immediately ignited when the car stopped. At that moment, a man rushed to the car and literally pulled the driver out by the collar. But what surprises me the most is that after the rescue, he got into the car to activate the fire extinguishing system, which for some reason wasn't activated. It's a real miracle how quickly he managed in such a terrifying situation. Saving a falling child. The internet was buzzing about this guy. It's just a pity we don't know his name, because he not only happened to be in the right place at the right time, the young man was also very attentive and agile. At one moment, he noticed something on the facade of a building. On it, he saw a small child who was about to fall onto the asphalt from a great height. Naturally, no one, not even an adult, could survive such a fall. Luckily, the guy was quick on his feet and caught the falling baby in his arms. It definitely saved the child's life. But I still wonder, did he really not suffer any injuries? Even considering that the child weighs very little, it doesn't mean he couldn't have been hurt in such an incident. Unfortunately, we can only guess about that. Passerby saves drowning child. And here's another video showing just how dangerous it is for children to play near bodies of water. A couple of kids were playing near a canal. One child was hiding behind a concrete block, while the other was playing on the stairs. It seems like he was trying to test the depth of the water with a stick, but he couldn't maintain his balance and fell right into the water. And the video clearly shows that the child couldn't swim. But the kids were very lucky, because an adult passing by on a scooter immediately rushed to rescue the young swimmer. He jumped into the canal fully clothed and with things in his pockets and pulled the child out. I'm very relieved that nobody was hurt in this video. Pulled out from under a racing car. Another dad with quick reactions. At rally races, cars often fly off the track on turns. But the worst part is that spectators often stand in the most unsuitable places. And this video is proof that it's not worth watching the race from the front rows. A professional racer made a mistake, and his car flew off the track on a turn right into the crowd of onlookers. In the video, we see a bunch of people scattering away from the car rushing towards them, but one little boy couldn't manage to dodge the car. Fortunately, the man standing nearby reacted in time and literally pulled his son out from under the wheels. I'm even more amazed because there were only a couple of centimeters between the boy and the car. A real miracle. Rescued from an oncoming train. This video is a real shock. Just take a look. An empty railway station. A boy is walking along the platform with his mother. And then, for some reason, the child approaches the edge of the platform. Even though the woman is holding his hand, the boy still manages to fall onto the railway tracks. And then, from around the corner, a train appears. It seems like trouble is unavoidable. But lo and behold, suddenly, on the surveillance camera footage, a man jumps onto the tracks literally seconds before the train arrives, grabs the child, and most importantly, manages to get out himself. It's a true miracle that nobody was harmed in this incident. After all, it was simply impossible for the train moving at the tremendous speed to stop. It would have taken several hundred meters for the massive machine to slow down, which it didn't have. So the child and his careless mother were extremely lucky. And I find it amusing the guy in the blue shirt, who, judging by the footage, seemed to just be out for a jog, as from another angle it appears he was not rushing to help the victims at all. Pulled elderly person through a balcony. I'm sure you all know how dangerous fires in residential buildings can be, but what's even more dangerous is that sometimes the escape route can be blocked. That's what happened to one elderly person. There was a fire in his apartment, which literally cut off the exit from the flat. The grandfather was trapped on the balcony and had already breathed in a lot of smoke. It's clear from the footage how difficult and bad it is for him. A crowd of passersby, noticing what was happening, decided not to wait for the rescuers. The young people climbed up the facade to the neighboring balcony themselves and literally pulled the unconscious grandfather out. It's terrifying to imagine what would have happened to him if it weren't for these guys. Dog saved drowning person. And this video captured a real miracle. A passerby was walking with his dog when they noticed someone drowning in the river. The dog immediately rushed to rescue him. He descended to the river, leaped into the water with all his might, and in a few seconds reached the victim. As a result, this pair safely swam to the shore. I really hope that the dog who saved this lucky person got at least a treat as a reward for his bravery. Seizure behind the wheel. This video captured the wonderful act of a random person by a random driver on his dashcam. A man driving a hatchback was suffering from epileptic seizures, and unfortunately, one of them occurred while he was driving. It's scary to imagine what could have happened if another driver hadn't dared to help the poor guy. He sacrificed the rear of his car. As a result of the planned accident, nobody was hurt, and passersby promptly assisted the driver who had a seizure. Personally, I'm very glad that everyone in this video turned out to be safe. choking on a bone. You never know where danger might await you. Here's a man casually sitting in a bar, enjoying another fancy cocktail. However, at one moment, he choked on a bone, causing him to suffocate. Nobody around understood the seriousness of the situation. One guy even lightly patted the man on the back. But then the bartender noticed what was happening and immediately sprang from behind the counter. He used a special technique. Thanks to him, the man was saved. The bone flew off to the side and he was able to breathe freely again. And the onlookers nearby, realizing what had just happened, started applauding the hero. Fire in a high-rise building. If the previous video with a fire seemed not very impressive, then the next clip might shock you. A fire broke out on the top floors of a high-rise residential building. A resident of the apartment where the fire occurred was literally trapped in a room filled with thick black smoke. Just a couple of minutes in such a room, and you can say goodbye to your life. But then the neighbors below decided to help the victim. A couple of young people, risking their lives, climbed out of the window. They picked up their neighbor several floors up and brought him down to their room. This video simply shocks me because it's so difficult to maintain your balance while looking down from such a great height, let alone when you are also holding onto a person. A real miracle. Came to the rescue. The dashcam of this car captured a wonderful act of kindness by a driver. When a woman was driving along the highway, she came across the scene of a terrible accident. A crowd of passing people was already helping the victims, and the woman decided not to stand idly by. She got out and offered her help. Before the ambulance arrived, the injured might not have survived. And indeed, it was freezing outside, snowing, and it's strictly prohibited to leave injured people lying on the road in such weather conditions. So the people decided that something needed to be done for the victims. And the author of this video happened to have free space in the back seat of the car. So, without much hesitation, they decided to place the injured there. Perhaps this woman hurried to take them to the hospital, or maybe she was just waiting for the ambulance. Unfortunately, we won't find out as the recording ends. Boy saves his friend from a well. And this video fills me with a genuine sense of pride for the younger generation. A little boy out for a walk got into a serious predicament. He fell right to the bottom of a narrow well. When his parents realized he was missing, they started searching for the boy. And they were horrified when they found him, because getting him out of that well was simply impossible. Naturally, rescuers were called, but even they were powerless. The pipe in which the little boy was lying was so narrow that no adult could fit into it. So, the decision was made to dig around it to cut off the excess part and somehow reach the boy. But the well was made of metal, and cutting it next to the child was impossible. Therefore, they had to leave a few meters of clearance to ensure he wouldn't be harmed. Then the rescuers decided to descend and reach him. But as I mentioned earlier, no adult could fit into such a narrow well. Fortunately, nearby was a slender teenager who fit into the pipe. He was tied to an excavator and carefully lowered down. The boy managed to save the child from certain death and retrieve him from the bottom of the well. In reality, the child was very lucky. The depth of the well was enormous, but there was no water in it. Because of this, the rescuers had plenty of time to save the child. And I'm very relieved that nobody was harmed in this terrifying incident. Shocking accident. And finally, I would like to show you some truly horrifying footage. The Formula 1 race, Bahrain Grand Prix 2020. Right at the beginning of the race, on the first lap, a terrible accident occurred. Romain Grosjean collided with another car, causing him to fly straight into the barrier. Due to the powerful impact, his car literally split in half. The pilot's cockpit was in the front part, which got stuck in the barrier and caught fire. The car was engulfed in flames, and it seemed that Romain couldn't be saved anymore. The safety car, which was following the racers, was at the scene of the accident. Rescuers started extinguishing the fire that broke out, but then a real miracle happened. Romain literally jumped out of the flames, temperature of which was simply enormous. Rescuers couldn't even get close to the car, but one man still managed to help the racer get out and dragged him aside while his assistants were extinguishing the fire. I'm simply shocked that Romain Grosjean wasn't harmed at all in this incident. He had minor burns on his hands and feet, even though he spent several seconds in the flames. Conclusions. These were the most shocking scenes of people being rescued that I found specially for you. Thanks for watching.